Hello again. We are now at the stage where we have combined our pinch pots. You guys have cut your lids, cleaned up the seam on the inside. You've attached feet and a handle. So now I want to give you guys a couple of decorating ideas. So surface design ideas, different techniques that you can use, specifically two, that you guys can try out with this project. One is called incising. So incising is to engrave or scrape into the surface of the clay. This is easiest done in the leather hard stage. If the clay is too soft, when you carve away, it'll just leave little sharp burrs, like little bits of clay on the edge of what you just carved. So leather hard is closer to like carving wood, where you carve and it just kind of comes away nice and clean, is the easiest stage to do incising. The other option is applique. So that is cutting out little shapes of fresh clay. You're going to score and slip and attach that to the surface of your piece, creating texture or different objects on the outside of your vessel, allowing you guys to decorate it that way. So first one I wanted to demonstrate, and I'm just going to show you guys on these little pinch pots. So I'll begin with incising, so engraving or carving back into a piece. Again, this is leather hard. It's sat for a day or two in plastic. It's stiff enough that I can't just crush it in my hand. I mean, I could if I put in some effort, but it's not as soft as when it was first made. So you guys all should have gotten, if you're at home, you should have some sort of loop tool. If you can find a paper clip, that works really great in making your own tools. So you can bend a paper clip into whatever shape you want to make your own loop tool. And you can take duct tape and wrap it around a pencil on the end of a pencil. So you have something similar to this. So try that out if you have, because I know I didn't have enough tools to send home a variety of loop tools for you guys. So if you need a paper clip, let me know and I can send a box home and you guys can experiment in making your own loop tools. Let me know. I'll help you out with that. But for the loop tool is really great for carving away. And what it does is when you carve, it pulls that excess away and leaves a nice clean line. You can see that there. A lot of people like to use the needle tool, which can be done. The difference, though, is that the needle tool kind of raises that surface. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it does leave that burr behind. And then you have this kind of stuff to kind of clean up. And when you try to scrape it away, it pushes clay back into your line. So it's not ideal for carving. If you like stippling, sometimes this works really great for kind of creating stippling lines. Or you can even press it into your clay. But again, it does create those burrs, which can be kind of frustrating if you're trying to be really precise. So looking for these loop tools, again, they're not as fine of a line. You can find loop tools that are finer, like this one. So if you're thinking about trying out a paper clip, you can fold them really small like this, and this will get you smaller, not really fine, but a smaller carve than these other tools here. And again, you can use the needle tool. Just be aware that it's going to kind of raise that clay up. It doesn't pull it away like the loop tools do. So you'll have those little burrs to kind of deal with. So thinking about, how you want to design your surface, maybe you are looking just to make a pattern of some sort. You might want to practice just on a different piece of clay than on your final piece, just to see what kind of patterns you can create. Trying your tools out in different ways. Maybe I want to do a bunch of lines together. Maybe I want to do hatch lines with it. It'll create this kind of checkered look. You can use these circular ones. So if you're in the classroom, I have a set of these tools that you guys can kind of experiment with. Maybe you're looking for like craters in the moon kind of look, or making patterns with your carving. Or maybe you want to carve in, so this kind of looks like plants, like a leaves. Experiment with that a little bit. The loop tools, you just have to clean them out every once in a while. It's going to pull that extra clay out of there. So this is called incising. I'm just showing you guys a real quick example so you can get an idea of what that means. And because we did the pinch process, these walls are relatively thick, right? So you can come in here and really carve. You have a pretty good idea of how far you can go before you're getting too thin. So just be aware that you're not pushing all the way through. If you do want a piece that has a hole in it, maybe your design, you wanted to be able to see through your design. You wanted holes in your piece. That is actually called sprigging. And I'll show you guys a couple of ways to do that. So if you have something like an X-Acto knife or something, you can create a hole just by kind of twisting the tip and kind of carving away until you create that hole. So maybe I wanted to make a couple of holes. Maybe you wanted to make this more of something that you could put like a little tea light into, and it would have light come through like a lamp of sorts. That might be kind of an interesting approach. So that's called sprigging. The problem with doing it with a knife like this is that, again, it's just pushing the clay in different directions. So you've got these little, if you can see that, there you go. The clay kind of pushed through there. So I can come in here with my loop tool and kind of pull that away. Try to clean that up. So using that knife, you have a little bit of control over how big you want those holes to be. You could even cut shapes, if I wanted to cut like a triangle or a square or something into this, or even if I wanted to do like straight lines all the way through, I could do that with my knife piece. I'm just gonna try to pull that away. Okay, so there's a little bit there. Just be careful because it is still leather hard and it is still moldable and could break on you. So when you're cutting these pieces, just be patient with yourself. Allow yourself time. All right, so I cut these. I'm kind of cleaning up those burrs that kind of came out of it. Maybe you want to expand that a little bit, make it look more like a triangle than a rectangle. All right, so there I cut another little design into that one. I do have this tool. I think I only have one in the classroom. It's actually mine, and it's big. So if you're looking for smaller holes, I only have this one. I'll have to order some more. But the idea is that it's cut at this angle so that it actually, and it's hollow. So it pulls the extra clay away as you cut so you don't get those burrs. So you push it in and you turn it at the same time. And you can pull it back out and it makes that really nice, clean hole. So if you wanted to do something like a pattern of holes, or sprigging as they call it, the term is sprigging, you could use this tool if you wanted to. So push and twist, and it creates those nice, consistent oval shapes here. I just have to clean that out here. All right, let's see, maybe one more over here. All right. So here's my example of incising and sprigging. So anything that's carved into the surface, like this kind of leafy looking thing here, the lines, the stippling, all of that is, the term is incision or incising in ceramics. And then when you cut all the way through and you make those holes in your piece, in ceramics that is called sprigging. So I'm creating holes so that it's actually a piece that you can look through. So yeah, that's my example of incising and sprigging, just experimenting on this extra pinch pot I had. So another surface option or surface design option you guys have is applique. And that is adding a low relief clay form to the surface of another piece. So I've got this extra pinch pot here. You can just, make pieces as you go and attach them. So you need to score and slip like we did for everything else that we have to attach. Anything that is of a different moisture, actually, whenever you're attaching anything in clay, unless it's both pieces are in the plastic stage, you must score and slip. So I've got this leather hard pinch pot here, and I wanted to add some applique. I'm going to make a stencil for myself, so I'm just going to make a consistent shape over and over and attach it. You don't have to do that. This is just an option. I just wanted to show you guys how you might do this if you wanted to make like just a pattern out of a shape. So I cut out this stencil here. And what I did before I started the video was I rolled out this slab. For applique, typically thinner is better. In the classroom, I have these rolling pins that you guys can use. At home, I didn't get those to you guys yet because I didn't have enough to send home to everyone. If you have one in the kitchen, ask permission and maybe you can use it just to roll it out nice and thin. Otherwise, you can throw clay too, so you can kind of, take a piece, thin it out as much as you can with your hands, and then try to throw it like this gently, and that will spread that clay out, and eventually you'll get it thin. It takes a little bit of time, but either way, make it as thin as you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out my stencil here. I'm just going to trace it first, and then I'll come back and cut it. And they're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be exactly the same, but that's okay because we are human. We're not robots. These are handmade. And sometimes you discover new interesting things when things are not exactly as you had planned them out to be. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see this, but I just traced my shape into the slab. I'm now going to cut them. And I'm using an X-Acto knife for this. You can use a needle tool or a butter knife or whatever you have available. All right, so I've got my little shape here. I'm just kind of cleaning up the edges a little bit. Let's say I wanted to attach it here. And again, it doesn't look perfect now. It's okay. I'm going to be adding more to it. So first step first is I'm thinking about, I want mine to be kind of layered. So I'm going to start at the top so I can place my next one on top of it. So you can layer it, your applique pieces. All right, so I have 3 of my applique pieces cut. So I'm just going to show you guys real quick how you could use these in different ways. My plan was to do the whole thing covered in these applique pieces. You can make a pattern of them just laying on the surface like this, just one layer. You know, it can be a staggered pattern. It can be this like pattern just going straight down. I could put the third one at the very bottom and do that all the way across, or I could do it all the way around. I kind of wanted to try having it come up over the edge a little bit and then have them overlapping a little. So I wanted to put these two next to each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach here. Just kind of playing around with it, see what I like. I'm not sure I'm liking that too much, so I think I might just go with that. And you could always flip it and do the other way. You could kind of stagger it that way. You know, whatever you're thinking. All right, so I think I'm going to stagger mine like this. So first thing first is I need to do the one that's on the very bottom. I'm going to use my needle tool to trace, and just like we did with the feet and the handle, and everything else that we've attached, we're going to score it really good. Score the applique piece. I've got my slip here, so I'm going to add the slip to the piece I'm adding, as well as slip to the other clay body, and I'm going to press them in there. Now I used a lot of slip, so there's a lot of cleanup, but that's okay. So I've got my apron. All right, so I'm just going to press that gently so that I'm not crushing my pinch pot here. You can always reshape your applique pieces too. So if it's kind of getting deformed as you're adding it, just go back here and kind of refine that a little bit. All right, so then I'm going to put my second one on here. So again, where it's attaching, which is going to be attaching to that main base piece, I traced it. Anything where it's going to be attaching to that leather hard piece, I'm going to score that. I could even score a little bit of the other applique piece. Do a little cross hatch, add slip. And then I'm gonna, again, gently press that in there. I kind of wanted a little bit more texture, so I'm going to kind of pull those kind of leaf looking like structures out a little bit, like they're curling out. Maybe this one's curling in. And again, just pressing it in there, I'm just compressing it against where I did the score and the slip. That should be enough to kind of hold it. Should stay, as long as you're pressing it in enough. One more, and then I'll let you guys go. So I'm going to put this last one down here. And again, it doesn't have to be a pattern. It could just be like, you know, polka dots, like, you know, if you wanted to make a pattern of a shape. Whatever you are using for applique is fine. It doesn't have to be staggered like this or stacked. It can just go directly on the surface. Like, let's say you wanted to put some eyeballs on here or something. Whatever you're making whatever shape you're using for applique is totally up to you and how you designed your piece. Again, I might want to create something that'll kind of hold this in place while I lift up my work here. So if you're making something like with scales, this might be kind of an interesting way to kind of create that texture too. This almost looks like dragon scales or something. Just thinking out loud. So again, I'm just kind of pressing that clay in really good. I know that I scored and slipped it really well, so it should attach itself. I'm just going to do a little bit of curling of the applique piece. Now, when I put this away for the night, I know we talked a lot about the different stages and making sure that your pieces dry at the same pace. Right now, these little pointy pieces here are going to be an area of focus for drying. Everything else about this piece is pretty thick and will dry pretty slowly. But because these tips of these little applique pieces I put on here are very thin, I really need to be careful about not letting those dry out really quickly. Because if they do dry out really fast, if those start to look like they're getting bone dry, you need to wrap them. I usually take a grocery bag and I will put water on the tip of what I'm trying to keep wet or keep moist, wrap it with that grocery bag while the rest of it is drying at its normal pace, okay? So that's just kind of keeping that that moisture in there while the rest of the pot catches up. And once the rest of the pot starts looking like it's getting to that bone dry stage, you can remove that extra plastic and extra water. Check it periodically, make sure it's not drying really quickly underneath the plastic. And once it starts looking like, the rest of the pot has caught up to the tips, then you remove that plastic and let it dry all at the same pace. And remember too, once it's at that bone dry stage, especially these really thin pieces will be really fragile. So make sure that you come back and you're just really careful with how you're handling your piece when it is in the bone dry stage. Okay? So that's applique. You can always come back into once it's attached and leather hard or whatever, and come back in here and create more design. So let's say if I wanted this to be like leaves, I could come in here and kind of carve new pattern into it. Really depends on what you are going for with your piece, okay? So applique and incising, sprigging, all of those are techniques that you can use for surface design with your lidded vessel pieces, okay? Thanks, guys.